Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking an incredibly intriguing, authentic journal entry dated May 6, 2026. It was penned by a dedicated gardener named Ang. You know, if you got any gardeners in your life, you know they can look at a seemingly random patch of dirt and immediately see a blank canvas. Well, we're looking at part 886 of Ang's ongoing series, which focuses on a really fascinating theme, the domestication and cultivation of wild seedlings. What I absolutely love about this source material is how it acts like a window right into the mind of someone who observes, interacts with, and gently attempts to tame the natural world. So, through the visual breakdown we've prepared for you today, we're going to explore the meticulous, patient, and honestly sometimes unpredictable art of bringing the wild straight into our homes.
Let's dive right in with Ang's own words here. From the wild to the pot. That simple little phrase perfectly captures the central philosophy of this entire entry. It's a profound shift in environment, right? We're talking about taking untamed nature, plants that have literally sprouted on their own terms in their own chaotic ecosystems, and carefully curating them into a deliberate, confined space. It's actually a beautiful metaphor for gardening itself. The gardener is basically acting as a mediator between the wild outdoors and the structured order of a cultivated collection.
Now, as any practitioner knows, gardening is entirely at the mercy of the elements. Ang notes that they were finally blessed with some good weather, a much-needed break from some really heavy downpours. And it's that specific break in the weather that actually allows the real work to begin. So those long-pending, hands-on tasks were immediately resumed. We're talking about the physical labor of raking the grounds, the endless, eternal battle of weeding, and then the main event we're focusing on today, harvesting those outdoor plants for potting. This isn't just casually picking flowers, it's a strategic extraction of life from the yard right to your workstation.
Let's look at case study 1, the known, specifically the Singapore Rhododendron.
So Ang's journal entry naturally divides up into two distinct micro-case studies. Here, we're introduced to our very first botanical subject, the melastoma-malabathricum, which is commonly known as the Singapore Rhododendron. Ang shows a very clear intent here. They aren't just letting this thing grow wild wherever it happened to sprout up. Instead, they're moving it from its wild origin into a highly controlled environment. By harvesting it as just a small seedling, Ang is capturing the plant at its absolute most malleable stage, making it perfectly ready for targeted cultivation.
Now, what stands out immediately here is the number 4. Ang casually mentions that this is actually the 4th Singapore rhododendron they've harvested so far. And honestly, that single number speaks volumes. It highlights a really deep ongoing dedication to mastering this one specific species. It tells us that this isn't just some fleeting one-off experiment. It's a persistent, iterative process. Ang is out there trying, observing, learning, and then trying all over again, tweaking their technique with every single new seedling they pull from the yard. And because this plant is still just a small seedling, it's the absolute perfect time to intervene in its natural growth path. First, you pinch the tip. This simple physical action halts the upward, leggy growth of the plant. Second, doing that encourages branching, which forces the plant's energy outward instead of just up. And finally, the ultimate goal is achieved, much bushier, denser foliage. It's a classic textbook horticultural technique laid out step by step, perfectly showing us how human hands can gently guide natural development. But of course, as we all know, nature doesn't always follow the textbook perfectly, does it? Ang actually notes a persistent struggle here, referencing an older journal entry from part 841. See, despite applying these deliberate techniques, previous potted plants showed perfectly adequate, even fast growth, but they still lack that desired tight, dense foliage that Ang is really aiming for. It's a fantastic reminder of exactly why they're on their 4th attempt. It really highlights the everyday reality of gardening. It's just this constant, ongoing negotiation with the plant's own genetics and its environmental responses.
Moving on to case study 2, the unknown, subtitled The Wind-Propagated Weed.
So now we pivot to an entirely new kind of challenge. On one hand, we have the known, that calculated cultivation of a familiar species we just talked about, where the struggles are pretty much anticipated. But on the other hand, we have the unknown, a total mystery arrival. This is an unidentified plant that, frankly, a lot of people would just outright dismiss as a nuisance weed. It arrived completely by chance via wind propagation, just growing entirely on its own, and yet Ang observes something really special in it, remarkably fast growth and the surprising development of a strong trunk. It's this brilliant opportunistic taming of a self-seeded wild card. And guys, here is the really fascinating twist of ambition.
Ang isn't just going to put this unidentified weed into a pot and let it be. No way. The goal here is molding it into a bonsai. I mean, think about that for a second. Taking a random, fast-going yard reed and deciding to subject it to one of the most rigorous, patient, and highly disciplined horticultural arts in the world. It is literally the ultimate expression of our theme today, taking the wildest, most untamed potential out there and applying total, deliberate structure to it.
As Ang wraps up this particular journal entry, they leave us with this deeply poetic sign-off. Let's see how this unfolds over the coming moons. That recurring phrase just beautifully captures the overarching theme of our entire explainer today, which is patience. Whether you're dealing with the predictable, familiar struggles of a known rhododendron or the wild, super ambitious bonsai dreams of an unknown weed, nature ultimately dictates the timeline. You can pinch the tips all you want, you can pot the soil perfectly, but the real results, well, those are only going to reveal themselves slowly, over the passing of many moons.
To wrap up our explainer today, I really want to leave you with a thought. Ing looks out at their yard after a heavy rain and managed to see total potential in both a familiar flower and a completely mysterious weed. So what wild, uncultivated potential is growing completely unnoticed right now in your own backyard, just waiting to be shaped? I really hope this structured look at a simple, everyday gardener's journal has inspired you to look just a little bit closer at the wild seedlings surrounding you today. Thank you so much for joining me and keep exploring.